Today we're watching two gas station horror stories animated by Wansee Entertainment. I think I'm saying that right. I hope I'm saying that right. But yeah, let's see.
This happened to me 25 years ago. I had just dropped out of college and was looking to stretch my legs and get a new job. Well, that turned out to be much harder than expected. As a college dropout, I knew I wasn't going to find much. However, I managed to get a job at the gas station on Route 52. It was very far away from really anything. The closest town was 20 miles away. The owner was quiet, kept to himself. The place was a dump, and the pay was scarce. One night, August 15th, the owner had just left, leaving me in charge for the night shift. Even I had goosebumps that night. It was quiet.
I would too. Man, why would I be working at a gas station at night?
Peaceful, you may say. However, none the more dramatic. Fog covered the one road that led to nowhere, and there wasn't a car in sight. I was just about to close up for the night when a man entered the store. That wasn't very
He don't look a little healthy. He look kind of bony.
odd, seeing as I had gotten a few customers that night. However, the one thing that seemed out of the ordinary to me was that I never saw a car park in the parking lot. They would have had to walk 20 miles. But it occurred to me there was an abandoned house very close to the gas station. Maybe they found comfort there and needed a drink, so I carried on. I told them the station was closing soon. However, they just stood there, looking at the cigarettes on the counter. Seemed odd to me, because he was a rather old gentleman, and I wouldn't expect someone like that to continue smoking, even if he did it in his prime. I asked him if he wanted some. He said yes. That was all he would say that night. I asked him if that would be all. He had the cigarettes in his hand. However, rather than going to the register, he nodded his head and slowly stepped closer to the door. I tried to gather his attention. However, he didn't respond to me. He opened the door.
He didn't even pay for it first. Dang, at least drop a $2 bill on the counter.
Or to go outside. I followed him from behind. I felt a chill when I did, one that I had never felt before. He began to walk into the street. However, I didn't follow him. The reason I didn't follow him was because a car was coming his way. I yelled out one more time, "Sir, sir!" But he continued walking, slower than before. In fact, then he stopped. He turned around, and he looked right at me. He slowly put out his hand, with the car coming closer and closer towards him, and pointed it right at me. I had no time to react to that, however, because a few seconds later, the car sped up and ran into him.
Did you see how he just skirted on the truck? He just skirted! Dang.
As I opened my eyes, expecting the old man to be in front of me, no one was there. In fact, I didn't even see the car in the distance. All that remained was a pack of cigarettes that sat there in the street. To say the least, that spooked me right out, but I truly knew no one would believe my story.
But why would he stand in the middle of the street pointing his index finger at a random person? For what reason? What was the reason, sir?
So, I got myself back in shape, closed up the station, and went home. I slept with the light on that night. In the middle of the night, 12 I believe, I got a call. The owner of the gas station had passed away. I thought that was very unfortunate. It was rather nice to me. However, I will never forget these words. They told me he died in a car accident. Some random pedestrian walked in front of his car on the highway, causing him to swerve into the ditch. The owner's son took possession of the store and decided to close it down. He came up to me one day and asked if I knew anything about what happened. I just shook my head and walked away. I knew he'd never believe me. I eventually moved to New York, where I went back to school and got a job as a psychiatrist. Maybe if I can't relieve myself, I can relieve others from their torment. I've never spoken of that day since it occurred. However, I have decided to post it as sort of a message to others. The dead are alive, just not in the human form. As for the old man, I say goodbye, and I hope you finally got your cigarettes.
What is this? What type of fix is that? What? Alright, let's get another one. Alright, this one is called School Horror Story, animated by Wansee Entertainment. So, let's watch it.
That's what I experienced when I was 17. At that time, I was in good shape because I mastered many sports, such as boxing and wrestling. But one day, Alexander, a notorious delinquent at my school, asked me for a fight. I was bewildered and said, "If I hit you, you'll go straight to heaven." But I shouldn't have said this. He suddenly shouted in anger, "I'll chew you to pieces, eat you up, and then take a shit."
I know this is scary and I shouldn't be laughing, but he's just big a poop. Why did he say it like that?
I was perplexed, but I realized there was nothing I could do. He ran up to me and punched me, and I punched him back as I was enraged. He was knocked down to the floor by my fist, and blood started dripping from his nose. I tried to help him up, saying I'm sorry, and let's stop this, but he grabbed me, knocked me over, and started beating me. I was infuriated and punched him badly. He fell down again and couldn't get up, as he was in pain. I kept yelling at him to stop, but he was already half mad. He got up again and shouted as he approached me.
Ew, he looks like a zombie. He'll be your brains. But in particular, I want yours, so come over here, you.
"Let's fight!" I shouted. "Please stop! You're gonna die if you keep doing that," he said, smirking. "Of course, one of us must die." He pounced on me, and I picked him up and pinned him to the ground. He broke his neck, got up with...
He's still trying. In a minute, he's gonna break all his bones. Like, he gonna be walking with one arm.
his neck broken and ran back at me. I tripped him with my leg, and he broke his arm as he fell down. He pounced on me with his arms broken as well.
He pounced on me with his arms broken as well. And why his arm been like that?
I yelled at him to stop, but he ran at me screaming, "I'll stop when you die!" I kicked him really hard, and he flew 10 feet away. He fell to the
I'm sorry, I shouldn't be laughing at this. Why does his left eye look like a bony cheek?
floor and tried to get up, but his whole body seemed to be broken, and it seemed that he couldn't move. I called the police right at that moment. The police arrived,
What are the police gonna do? Call the ambulance!
and he was taken away in an ambulance. He was hospitalized and taken to the intensive care unit. I was injured, as I was beaten up by him as well, but there were no major injuries. And after a while, I received another text message from him. There were 2 words written on that message: "Let's fight." I eventually called him.
Wow. Your whole body has been injured. All of your bones. Your arms are inverted and you still wanna fight? Seriously?
Apologized and told him I gave up. Then there was silence for a few seconds, and I heard him whispering, "Let's fight." My whole body trembled. He didn't listen to anything I said. His only goal was to fight me. I blocked his number. After a while, I received a letter. In the letter, once again, 2 words were written: "Let's fight." A few days later, I heard a knock and looked out.
Bruh. Are you serious right now? He already beat you to a pulp. You still wanna go at it, man?
Outside to find Alexander standing there. He was limping with a cast on his arm. I called the police, and he continued to hover around my neighborhood. I ended up moving, and I haven't heard from him since. Years passed, and I ran into my old high school friend Luke, and while talking with him, I happened to hear about Alexander. After he fought with me, he kept challenging other friends at school to fight, and most of the kids refused and avoided him, but one of them, a friend named Nicholas, accepted the fight, and in the end, the 2 of them fought until Alexander killed him with his bare hands. then, Alexander went to prison. I was horrified. He had meant everything he ever said. If I hadn't suppressed it then, I wouldn't be alive now.
That's something else. That's really something else. But let's do one more. Alright, this time we're watching Sound from the Basement by Wansee Entertainment. So these are all by him or her or somebody. Alright, let's watch.
A few days ago, somewhere in the house, I started to hear a faint scratching noise on the wall. As my house was in a remote forest, I searched the whole house to see if it was the sound.
The way the music stopped, though, he was like, there's some music going. He's like, I started to hear scratching noise, and then when he came to the door, pure silence.
Of a wild animal, but I couldn't find a trace of an animal anywhere. And the sound was getting louder day by day. I was able to locate the source of the sound in 4 days, when, as usual, I was focusing on carpentry in the yard. Suddenly, the saw I was using broke apart, and so I headed to the basement, where I hadn't been for a long time, to get a spare saw. In the basement, I was rummaging through my dusty toolbox, shining my flashlight, and I heard the sound that had been bothering me for days, right behind me. I was so surprised that my whole body stiffened, and I quickly turned around to shine the flashlight towards where the sound was coming from. But nothing was there. I went up to the wall and listened with my ear against it, and to my surprise, the sound was coming from the wall.
If that's a human, why would that be a human? But like, why out of all people, his basement? That's what I don't get about these stories. Like, what? This can never be a coincidence. What beef do you have with him, man?
At a very close distance. It was like the sound of something scratching the wall with a sharp tool, but it didn't sound like a wild animal, as it came in regular intervals. This situation, in which I had no idea what was happening.
In real life, we all would have been dipping.
The concrete wall was so creepy and frightening that I couldn't stay home. So I quickly packed my stuff and got out and called the police.
Look, all the stickmen wandering around in their stick land. All the stickmen in the stick land.
I hear a scratching noise in the walls of the basement storage room. Something is about to break out from the wall. The police said that it's probably a wild animal, and they said they couldn't.
But what would the police do? If you don't know what it is or who it is or what's happening, I don't think they're gonna be able to do anything about that.
Respond if it was just noise. I had no choice but to leave the forest and spend the night at the nearest motel. The next day, I returned home, grudgingly.
Would you want to stay at Motel Wansee?
With fear. When I returned to the house after just one day, it was a mess, as if someone had broken in. The kitchen and the living room were all covered with mud, and the refrigerator was wide open, and all the food inside was gone. There were numerous footprints on the
Hey, who ate my birthday cake?
floor, which the kitchen and the living room were all covered.
Birthday cake! But it's actually kind of rude. Why did they eat a strawberry?
Covered with mud, and the refrigerator was wide open, and all the food inside was gone. There were numerous footprints on the floor, which continued on to the basement. I took my gun out and carefully went down to the basement. To my surprise, there was a huge hole in the basement wall, and when I shined the flashlight at it, I couldn't see how deep it was. I called the police right away. After a while, they arrived and started searching the house. Many fingerprints were found in the house, but what was surprising was that all the fingerprints hadn't been registered, so even after checking, they couldn't be identified. One police officer said,
"It's estimated that there have been a total of 8 intruders, but even if we tracked all the fingerprints, they haven't been registered. Besides, the shape of the fingerprints are quite unique."
Then the officer looked through the hole in the basement with a flashlight and said,
The depth of this hole cannot be measured at all, and it's too dangerous for a person to go inside for an investigation. We've never experienced this kind of situation before. It will take a bit to organize a search party. How about moving out first?
Having worked as a carpenter, cutting the trees in the forest all my life, I had nowhere to go other than this place.
Why does that look like a lip, though? You're cutting lips today? How about you cut mine? Wait, what? What did I say?
I was afraid, but I had no choice but to plug the hole and decided to continue living there. After the cops had gone, I was left alone in the house. I covered the hole with a wooden board, nailed it firmly, and locked the basement door. Who the hell were the 8 people who broke into my house that day? The house became silent as if nothing had happened, and no more sound was heard from the walls. For several days after that, I was startled even when I heard the slightest sound. But as time passed, the memories of the incident faded. A month later, when I returned home after going out to the woods to cut trees, I heard a strange noise from the basement. That sound was a sound I'd never heard before, and it sounded like a snake. I pulled out my gun and carefully opened the basement door, when something suddenly came out and pounced on me, strangling me.
What type of thing is that? What is this? Whoa, bruh. What is that?
It was a creepy creature with a bald head and skin transparent enough to show all of its blood vessels. It's a appearance was similar to that of a human. The creature was strangling and looking down at me, and it had a terrible appearance, with no black parts of the eyes. It wasn't long before several creatures began to surround me when I passed out.
Who was that? Vegna's brother or something?
How long has it been? When I woke up from the pain of my back being chafed, I saw the creatures grabbing my legs and dragging me into the subterranean ground. They were making an eerie hissing sound, and their transparent bodies were glowing green in the dark. The narrow passage in the underground gradually widened large enough for an adult to stand up and walk. There were many creatures gathered together. They crawled towards me and started fondling me. The creatures lifted me up and went deeper into the tunnel, where I saw a creature sitting with its head hanging low. I noticed it was the frailest creature, even at a glance, with a wrinkled
The captain! We found another one.
body and bent back. The creature slowly lifted its head and looked at me, and its eyes resembled human eyes because it had blurry black irises. It was the only creature among the creatures to have black irises. Its eyes widened as it saw me, and it made
Oh, yay! This one finally has pupils.
strange noises. It began to speak in a strange language that I couldn't understand. Nana luga ani, yonamu, luga uri, kimaki, iya ani munadu. What did you say? When I asked it, the creature started muttering incomprehensible words again, and the other creatures were watching us, holding their breath. I wondered if the language really even existed, so I took my phone out of my trouser pocket and turned on the voice translation app. But the translator didn't recognize the creature's words at all. So I turned on the recorder instead and recorded.
How do you even have bars in there? Like, how do you even have service?
The creature's words. The creature, which was muttering unknown words, eventually made a hiss sound to the rest of the creatures. Then the creatures rushed to me and began to kneel down and bow. What is this? I was puzzled at this strange situation. and they brought a bunch of various insects, dead moles, and tree roots and handed them to me. It seemed like they were sharing their food. It was only then that I realized that the creatures had no intention to kill me, and I gestured to them that I would not eat the food they brought me. Then, as if the creatures understood my words, they backed away for a while, and then brought a creature that looked like a female and thrust her on me. The female creature hissed and clung to my body. I shook it off in astonishment. I was so scared to be in this situation, and I wanted to get out quickly. So I cried and begged them to let me go back home. Then they began to lead me back down the tunnel where we came in. Walking through the long tunnel, relying on the green
At least they understand you.
light emitted by the creatures in the pitch darkness, was very arduous. After many twists and turns, I was able to get out again through the hole in the basement of my house. They sent the female creature out of the hole as well, and the female creature hissed and crawled around quickly inside the basement. I jumped out of the basement and quickly locked the door. Then the female creature started pounding hard on the door from inside. I called the police and explained the situation, and shortly after, the police and the search party arrived. The police carefully opened the basement door, and at that moment the creature jumped out and clung to me. I was so startled that I screamed, and when the police tried to remove the creature clung to me harder and bit my neck. As I screamed, holding my neck, the cops smashed the creature's head hard with a club and got it off of me. As soon as they dragged the creature out of the house, white smoke suddenly billowed from its transparent skin when it received sunlight. Soon it burned black and died painfully on the spot. From that day on, I was investigated for a long period of time about what I had seen underground, and my house was frequented by many people involved. My house was surrounded by a police line. The corpse of the dead creature was autopsied, and it had organs resembling those of a human inside its translucent skin, but no lungs, and gill-like holes were pierced diagonally along the ribs. Experts speculated that they may have survived by breathing through the gills underground. In addition, they said that their eyesight was deteriorating, so they did not have irises and could barely identify objects by light. I submitted the file containing the voice of the creature recorded on my cell phone to the police, and numerous historians gathered to analyze the language. Surprisingly, it was not the language of the modern society, but the language of ancient North American Native Americans. And when translated, it meant, "You are our first ancestor. We hid into the ground to outlive the war and survived, generation after generation, for a very long time. If I die, there will be no one who has learned the language. Teach your language to these people." The creatures were natives who hid underground to escape from an unknown war about 3,000 years ago. Over that long period of time, their bodies had developed to suit the underground environment, and they've become creatures. If people found out of their existence, it could cause social ramifications, so the government strictly controlled them from appearing in the media. I also had to write a memorandum to not disclose all the facts. My wounds from the creature's bites have almost healed, as they were stitched up at the hospital and treated regularly, and the nightmare-like memories of the day gradually faded off as well. I looked at my neck in the mirror and sighed in relief. I took off my clothes to take a shower, and there were strange holes in my ribs. What the? Astonished, I got closer to the mirror, and surprisingly, the skin of some parts of my body had turned transparent, revealing blue blood vessels. I went straight to the hospital, and all the doctors in the hospital rushed over to see my body, and they were shocked. They said that the disease is a rare one that they have never seen before. That was when I realized that my body was slowly changing into a creature after I was bitten. After returning home, I hid in agony due to my appearance that was changing terribly. After a long time, I mustered up the courage to stand in front of the mirror and found that the black irises in my eyes had faded. In addition, as my skin had turned transparent, it felt unbearably prickly and painful when exposed to ultraviolet rays. Now my body could no longer cut trees or go outside of the yard to do carpentry. By intuition, I realized I could only survive by going into the hole in the basement. I broke through the sealed basement door and began drilling the hole the police had filled with concrete. After drilling through the concrete continuously for a week, I heard sounds of people outside the basement when I was finally able to squeeze my body into the hole.
Mr. Graham, it's the police. Please open the door. I came after receiving your medical records from the hospital. I heard your body is gradually changing. Are you all right?
I crawled into the hole, ignoring the cops shouting.
That's one mighty cliffhanger. Well, that was cool. And yeah, it did look like Vecna, but I forgot his name. So I went to go look it up. Okay? I forgot my camera was on. And yeah, but it's alright. Definitely didn't do that. You don't remember anything. Go back to your day. Move along. But yeah, that was cool. And yeah, I hope to see more of Wansee Entertainment. So go check them out. Bye. See you in the next video.